My lords, today I am able to bring you an alternative history of humanity. We have found records during exploration of an astral rift that appear to describe the history of humanity, though it is clearly not our own. In this reality, humanity finds a device called the Ancient Cache of Technology. I shall detail this alternative account of history for you now, and we begin in the 2020s, which the records dub as the stagnation of society. The years between 2020 and 2050 were, according to the records, mostly uneventful, perhaps unlike our own history. Earth was still divided between countries aligned with both democratic and authoritarian governments. Proxy wars were still being fought between world powers, but with the majority of the tension coming from rattling of the saber via things like social media. Indeed, most technological advancements during these years appear to have been nothing more than digital improvements. New forms of social media platforms, movies, and video games came and went, but it was a time of stagnation, where technology companies focused less on innovation and more on cementing revenue streams. As the world moved closer to 2050, a basic resource shortage began to become a realistic concern. This in turn would lead to tension between major world powers. Many previously somewhat stable countries began to suffer chaotic economic crises that threatened to collapse the nations. Stronger countries began to exploit these weaknesses, leading to even greater tension between the West and the East. Many believed a nuclear war may be imminent as the contenders were running out of options. Fortunately for Earth, a distraction would present itself. The first sighting, 2050 to 2070. Sometime in the early 2050s, alien spacecraft were detected in the Sol system. The footage of the mysterious ships sparked major discussions among human society. This was the first time that humanity had encountered genuine aliens, but what was more alarming was that the alien spacecraft captured in the video appeared to be firing some sort of energy weapon at another alien spacecraft. The implications were extremely disturbing. These alien ships were likely capable of faster than light travel and had advanced energy weapons. Movements to reignite space programs across the globe would soon follow this, but they were met with heavy opposition. Many of Earth's population believed that the footage was fake. The internet rode the wave of the potential of these new aliens. The Truth Is Out There movement would be reborn. Western countries proposed the idea of arming satellites and space stations with weapons, but were met with strong resistance from Russia and China, who refused to allow any sort of orbital weapons to be installed, fearing that they would be used to interfere with their political interests. Russia, predominantly, continued to rattle the saber regarding the threat of their nuclear arsenal, stating that they would use it to destroy any Western space weapon program. By 2060, Earth began to return to the status quo of the previous 50 years. The alien encounter was deemed an elaborate hoax by the majority of the media, and many supporters of the footage were criticised heavily. However, despite this, it would appear that many citizens would begin to feel the pointlessness of the political bickering. The brief exposure to this alien encounter, fake or not, gave humanity a taste of what united common ground between all nations could be. The idea of united government would soon be followed after a book published by a respected and famous American scientist by the name of Mary C. Boyajian, the One Earth, One Science philosophy. Dr. Boyajian, one of the major supporters of the renewal of the space program, became a strong proponent for new action within world politics. She wrote a book that explained the ideology and feasibility of a unified Earth government and explored many models of said government, both real and theoretical. The book also criticized and attacked many God-based religious beliefs, claiming that many of them were detrimental to human development as a civilization. In her scientist's purview, if gods existed, they would not need humans to worship them to begin with. And finally, the book touched on the threat of nuclear annihilation. It advocated for the development of technologies that could stop nuclear attacks or nullify their destructive capabilities, and how this should be the focus rather than building ever larger bombs. The publication of this book would spearhead the Doctor's rise to fame, and it would gain a lot of popularity with democratically aligned nations, while being attacked and banned by most of the authoritarian governments, including that of both China and Russia. In a later interview, Dr. Boghian openly criticised both countries for putting their own interests over that of the world. The book also naturally drew a lot of ire from the religious communities, claiming that it disrespected their beliefs and they demanded the book be pulled off the shelves. Despite this, the book remained popular among Western culture due to its detailed and convincing argument relative to the current political situation. The second sighting, 2070 to 2090. Sometime during the 2070s, another alien spacecraft was sighted. This time, they ventured far closer to Earth, and the images and video captured was of significantly greater quality than before. Further to this, the aliens were captured via the Mars rover, on Mars itself. They were videoed appearing to deliver some sort of artifact, and once the object had been placed on the ground, the aliens simply disappeared. As before, this alien revelation took the world by storm. Dr. Boghian, now a prominent figure in humanities culture, believed that the key to human advancement may lie in this mysterious alien artifact on Mars. The Doctor, alongside two other important figures in humanity's future, a Preet Minsati and a Russian politician, Fabi Zayko, secured funding to restart a world space program with the sole goal of getting humanity to Mars in order to investigate this alien artifact. Over the next 20 years, a team led by the Doctor would work tirelessly to revive humanity's space program. During this period, there appear to have been several sabotage attempts on the program, and even assassination attempts on her life. The why is not entirely clear, but we suspect somebody just wanted the status quo to remain. Despite pockets of resistance across the globe, the world would slowly become more anti-totalitarian, which would pave the way for the eventual rise of the United Nations of Earth government. Support began to roll in for the space program as more countries offered their resources on the promise to be included in whatever revelations the alien artifact had to offer. Initially, China and Russia both refused to support the project, yet, as the project became closer to completion, China began to speak more favourably of the project, and once the spaceship was near completion, China finally pledged to support it, a move cynically viewed by most to be a way for them to benefit from the project with as little investment as impossible. Russia, meanwhile, remained opposed to the project throughout. In 2090, a new spaceship, Excelsior, was finished and launched. Dr. Bolshevir personally led the Mars expedition team, and she became the first human to set foot on Mars. Her progress was broadcast to the entire world. The people of the world watched and cheered in both near real time and excitement as she made her way towards the mysterious alien artifact. The discovery of the ancient cache of technology, 2090 to 2095. As the Doctor and her team approached the artifact, it began to buzz and whine. Before it, a hologram appeared, speaking in a calm, soothing voice, stating that it had been waiting for her arrival. It waved its hand and a doorway appeared in the red sand next to the device. The Doctor entered alone. Nobody on Earth, nor her team on Mars, could successfully describe what happened to the Doctor. For them, mere seconds passed before she entered and exited the portal. But according to her, she had been inside the artifact for over a week, conversing and learning from the artifact's central intelligence. The artifact would become known as the ancient cache of technology, and the Doctor began to issue instructions. She appeared to have acquired an awful lot of knowledge in the time that she had been gone. She made it clear that the cache must be brought back to Earth, and with the help of the AI caretaker within the cache, a teleportation waypoint system was established between Mars and Earth. What had taken humans thousands of years to accomplish was replicated by this AI in mere minutes. A teleportation bridge was now formed between Earth and her next closest planet. Once the cache had been safely returned to Earth, wasted no time in attempting to implement some of its contents and began to experiment with the new technology. The lab that was previously designed to house the Excelsior exploration vessel was gradually repurposed, with increasingly new technologies and security measures added to it day by day. By 2096, it had become one of the most well-protected facilities on all of Earth, and many would take to calling it the Neo Area 51. While this was ongoing, a lab was set up at the discovery site of the artifact on Mars, and the camp would soon grow into a small research facility. Many of the more sensitive projects were moved to Mars to increase security from the ever-growing intrusion attempts by nefarious actors. The Dawn of Unification, 2090 to 2110. After working mostly in solitude and isolation for 5 years, the Doctor and the rest of her team were ready to showcase their discoveries, but more importantly, their plan for humanity and Earth. The Doctor and her team proposed a new future for humanity. This would be built upon the technology that the cache offered, and would unify Earth into the United Nations of Earth. Around the same time, they branded themselves as the One Science Community, or the OSC. The Doctor invited all sovereign nations to join the United Nations of Earth. Under the umbrella of the OSC, she laid out several conditions. Firstly, countries wishing to join must adopt a democratic system of government, not just in name, but in practice. Furthermore, the influences of religion would be stamped out, and a new order of scientific truth must be established. As one can imagine, at the time these demands were quite aggressive, but they were somewhat offset by the gift of technological advancement that access to the cache would offer. The vast majority of the so-called Western countries accepted the offer and joined the UNE. Several other states, namely China, Russia, India and North Korea, were not so ready to link arms and appeared to disagree with the fundamental principles the UNE wished to enact. However, when the world came to see the technological advancement the cache brought, genetic advancements leading to eradication of disease, energy production removing the reliance on fossil fuel, countries slowly began to flock to the UNE banner, including India and much of the Middle East. Not long after, the OSC was recognized as a formal sovereign state within the UNE, and they formed a peacebringer force of military personnel. These personnel were recruited from across the globe, and they were used to bring order and stability to war-torn and impoverished areas with as little blood and violence as possible. Life for much of the globe was improving at a considerable rate. The fall of Russia and the first Exodus, 2110 to 2120. With the majority of the world's nations on its side, the UNE started to employ more aggressive tactics to force its last real opponents, Russia and China, to capitulate. Sanctions were issued in an attempt to cut off both countries from revenue and supply. This was relatively easy to do, given that the technology that the cache offered bypassed the requirement for the basic resources these countries produced. Events would soon come to a head when the Russian government attempted to target the base of the OSC with a nuclear weapon. This proved ineffective, for the cache had already supplied the relevant technologies to defend from such devices. After the attack, peacebringer forces from the OSC were sent into Russia, and its government was forcibly removed. Not wanting to go through the same situation with China, which remained the only opposition to the OSC and UNE projects, an alternative solution was sought. This solution would come in the form of faster-than-light travel, again developed by the ancient cache. A proposal was made. China would become the leading country to pioneer the first human off-world colonization. In exchange, the new colony will be recognized as an independent sovereign nation, and was guaranteed a 100-year immunity from the UNE and the OSC's influence. The Chinese government were left with no other alternatives and agreed to the proposal, and thus the plans for the first Exodus began to take form. 6 massive colony ships were assembled, each carrying millions of humans from China. The invitation to travel on these ships was not offered solely to China, and many other citizens from across the globe joined as volunteers to explore beyond our solar system. The ships successfully took off from Earth, and the majority of the population aboard the Exodus were put into a deep cryosleep as part of the procedure. These people, or the survivors at least, would eventually end up forming the Commonwealth of Man. OSC was satisfied with the outcome, as the last opponents of the worldwide unity had been eliminated. A summit took place shortly after to reorganize the continents of Earth into 4 sectors: the Americas, the Africas, Eurasia, and Oceania. The United Nations of Earth was a dream that was finally being realized. The Suppression of Religion, 2120 to 2130. Now, with the entirety of Earth fully under its control, the UNE began a major campaign to revolutionize human society and culture. It introduced many new changes that, while controversial, had the approval of the majority of the citizens. More and more, the old cultures were abandoned or modified in favor of more modern, critical thinking ones. In August 2122, the UNE passed the vote to recontextualize all known religions, seeking to heavily suppress their influences and activities. Religion that was more pragmatic or peaceful was lightly modified to become life philosophy, while more fanatical religions were openly banned. For the next 70 years, humanity consolidated its power. A democratic system of government was established, allowing a council member to be elected from each of the newly established sectors. One of the 4 would become the president on a rotating term. By 2200, the UNE was ready to begin its adventure into galactic space, and it remains to be seen what sort of mark humanity will leave on galactic history. Thanks for watching, folks, and thank you to Churro for writing the lore that comes with his mod, The Ancient Cache of Technologies. If you enjoyed that and want to hear more about the mod, then I suggest you click the video on screen now and learn all about the Outer Gates.